From the heart of the space city to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, everybody. How are we? Welcome back to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Check me out on X at _Ethan Buchanan. A lot going on here today. I got a new chair. That's fun. It kind of forced me to completely rework my whole studio layout because this chair is significantly bigger than the one I had before. But I love this chair. It's so much more comfortable. All right, what do we got today? We've got some primary stuff going on. Brandon Herrera has officially won his primary against Tony Gonzalez. That was supposed to go to a runoff, but Tony Gonzalez dropped out because he was obviously going to lose that, and he knew it. The runoff between Ken Paxton and John Cornyn is still on for now, I guess. That's kind of minute by minute, so... I could check my phone at literally any moment and that be completely out of date just because Trump's hanging an endorsement over the head of everybody, which I personally just think at this point, don't endorse. Don't even bother. Anyway, there's tons we can talk about in that, and I'm sure we will coming up. Before we do that, though, I want to encourage you to check out my sponsor, Deus Vult lapel pins. And again, I cannot sing these guys' praises enough. I'm wearing one right now on this lapel here, the blue Jerusalem cross. You can get the Jerusalem cross in a whole bunch of different colors and varieties. They're all great. Of course, they've got the America 250 commemorative pin that should be coming back into stock any day now, really. They're doing a big batch of that. 200 pins will be part of that release. Usually they only do them at 50 at a time, but because there's so much demand for this, they're doing that one in a set of 200. So check out DeusVoltLapelPins.com. Use my promo code NEXTPIN2026. You'll get 10% off. Grab a couple because they're only $6 a pop. Support the show. Support an awesome family-owned business that makes a great, really good-looking lapel pins. I mean, if nothing else, these are a good conversation piece. And again, they support the show. So if you enjoy the show, check them out. Now, moving on from that, we do have some good news on the oil front. I know a lot of people want to panic about that right now because of everything going on in Iran. I don't think panic is warranted. Just brace yourself, maybe set aside an extra $20 to $30 for your car gas for the next month or so, just because it's up and down a little bit. But all things considered, vaguely all things considered, things seem to be going pretty well, and we have good things on the horizon as well because America should be doing more refining soon. And anyone who works in oil industry will tell you America's problem isn't so much oil production so much as it is oil refining. Getting it out of the ground, we do tons of that. We're great at it. It's refining it that we don't do as much as we should, and that's being corrected under the Trump administration, which is fantastic. So here's the announcement from President Trump. America is returning to real energy dominance. Today, I am proud to announce that America First Refining is opening the first new U.S. oil refinery in 50 years in Brownsville, Texas. So that's jobs here in Texas. That's great. We love that. This is a historic $300 billion deal, the biggest in U.S. history, a massive win for American workers, energy, and the great people of South Texas. Thank you to our partners in India and their largest privately held energy company, Reliance, for this tremendous investment. It is because of our America First agenda, streamlining permits and lowering taxes that have attracted billions of dollars in deals coming back to our nation. So again, this is great. This is investment in the United States from an outside power. India is involved in this, but that's fine. That's going to be American jobs in Brownsville, right next to the Gulf. So I foresee a significant amount of Venezuelan oil going into that plant. That's my prediction. I think we're going to be taking their oil, sending it to that plant to process it, to refine it, and then that will become American oil that we then sell and put on the market, which is fantastic, especially with everything going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Having that increase in oil supply with questions about how much oil is coming in or going around from the Middle East, that's great. That'll help us keep price down. That'll help us keep control of the global markets, which is a good thing if you want cheap gas or cheap energy. And of course, if you want cheap anything, you have to have cheap gas and energy. So I think that's great. That's fantastic. Moving on from that, just because I wanted to put that in there, there's a whole lot of negativity. We're going to have negativity later in the show. So before we got into all the bad stuff, I want to kind of hit that point of positivity real quick. Now, back to the primaries. John Cornyn obviously is still in a runoff against Ken Paxton, at least for now. But we do have some polling data about that particular race. So here it is. This is from the Texas Public Opinion Research. Texas Public Opinion Research today released a new poll of the Republican primary runoff voters ahead of the May 2026 runoff between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. The survey of 781 likely Republican voters was conducted from March 7th to March 8th and has a margin of error of 3.9 percentage points. Okay, that's a big margin of error, but when you look at how small the sample size is, that kind of makes sense. The key findings, this is what matters. Paxton leads Cornyn 49 to 41% in a runoff, an 8-point advantage with 11% undecided. Now, that makes perfect sense when you consider the fact that Paxton is kind of the underdog, which means his base is going to be more motivated than John Cornyn's. So in a runoff, when there's already election fatigue, it makes sense that Paxton is leading. Here's what I think might surprise a lot of pundits, but anyone who's been in Texas their entire lives will tell you this. If Trump were to endorse Cornyn, Paxton would still lead 44 to 43. Now, with a nearly 4-point margin of error, he could lead by as much as 44 to 43. So that's kind of a big deal. That tells you that regardless of what Trump says, the Republican voters, the Republican base here in Texas still do not like John Cornyn. They still do not want John Cornyn to be their senator. A lot of people feel like Donald Trump has a vice grip on the entire Republican Party, even here in Texas. That's clearly not the case. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more in just a minute. We're going to be talking about why people don't want John Cornyn, all of that and more coming up on the Next Gen Report right here on AM 950 KPRC. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Give me a quick follow on X at _ Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. We're talking about the GOP runoffs, particularly the Senate runoff. If you want to hear more of this outside of this time slot, outside of this fine 2 to 3 p.m. time slot that I've stuck myself into somehow, follow me on X, and then we do the Sunday show at 7 p.m. on KPRC 950, and of course our affiliates all over the glorious state of Texas. So if you're hearing me now for the first time and you want to hear more, that's where you find me. That first one-stop shop is X at _ Ethan Buchanan. Now, let's dig a little bit into this poll. Again, this is from the Texas Public Opinion Research. I don't know if that's like a group or a foundation or what, but they did this poll. And it's showing that currently, as things stand right now, Ken Paxton versus John Cornyn. Ken Paxton is up 49% to 41%. Now, I remind you, John Cornyn is an incumbent, and he's down at least 8 points right now in a runoff. That means he loses. If the election is held today, John Cornyn loses. If the election is held next week, John Cornyn loses. If the situation on the ground stays as is from now until Election Day, John Cornyn loses. According to this poll, this is one poll, so maybe things happen, But according to this data, John Cornyn loses. Now, what's really important to note is if Trump endorses Ken Paxton, those numbers shoot up for Ken Paxton. 58% to 32%, Ken Paxton wins. That's huge. If Trump endorses Cornyn, this is what I really want you to listen to. If Trump endorses Cornyn only goes up to 43%. Paxton still leads him by 1 point, 44%, which means Paxton still wins. That's not something you should ignore. That carries weight. This basically means, if these numbers are accurate, that no matter what happens, John Cornyn loses. Even Donald Trump right now can't save John Cornyn, which shouldn't really surprise you. Texans are very independent-minded. As much as we love Donald Trump, and we do, we're probably not going to re-elect John Cornyn just because Donald Trump says so. Now, as it stands right now, Donald Trump probably won't even say so because his endorsement is currently being used by him or his political team as leverage to pass the SAVE Act, which at this point, I don't think it's going to happen, at least not in this cycle. I want it to happen. I would love it if the SAVE Act passes, but I'm a realist, and I just don't see it passing right now. There's also another reason John Cornyn is going to lose, and that is just because he thinks he's unbeatable. And when you think you're unbeatable, chances are you're about to get knocked down a peg. That's what Dan Crenshaw learned the hard way in this primary season. I think that's what John Cornyn is about to learn too, and I'll give you an example of this. Here is something Ken Paxton put up on Twitter. He said, John Cornyn is a coward. He is silent about abolishing the filibuster and actually fighting to pass the SAVE Act. He is an unserious establishment politician who doesn't care about supporting the president, election integrity, or stopping child mutilation surgery. That's the, kind of broad encompassing of the SAVE Act. That's what the SAVE Act does. It requires voter ID. It stops child mutilation, gender-affirming care, quote-unquote, for minors. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's a big piece of legislation for the GOP. It's incredibly popular across the board. Even most Democrats support voter ID, despite what you hear about in the media. The poll after poll after poll after poll shows that even your average Democrat voter wants some voter ID, and yet the Republicans can't seem to get it passed. Now, Ken Paxton did a very good job in this tweet of calling out John Cornyn, who should have at least explained himself, but he didn't. Here is Ken Paxton, or John Cornyn's response to Ken Paxton's tweet. Your reputation precedes you, clown. I'm trying to read that in a Southern accent because I don't really know how thick John Cornyn's accent is. I can't do a good job because it's been so polluted by John Cornyn parodies, but that's my best attempt. Your reputation precedes you, clown. I feel like that's how he'd say it. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Shoot me a DM and tell me if you think that's terrible. Now, it is worth pointing out that John Cornyn's own reputation is pretty bad. He has, from the Conservative Review, a Liberty score of F. That's not great. F is bad. I don't know if you know that. You probably do. But, again, he's not speaking out. He's not responding to Ken Paxton hitting him with, I think, a pretty good point. John Cornyn is a powerful figure in the Senate. He's been there for a long time. He's got a lot of relationships. He's got a lot of leverage. Why isn't he actively speaking out and saying, yes, let's get this done. I support it. Let's blow through the filibuster, whatever we have to do. Because Ken Paxton is, for his part, doing that. That's the big priority of the party right now. Ken Paxton is toting the line. He's speaking up on the issues that Texans really, really care about, like election integrity, and he's backing the party line on this. I'll give you an example of how he's backing the party line, just in case you don't believe me. He was even willing to sacrifice his own career for this. The Save America Act is the most important bill in the U.S. Senate could ever pass, and I'm committed to helping President Trump get it done. I would consider dropping out of this race if Senate leadership agrees to lift the filibuster and pass the Save America Act. That's a bold statement right there in and of itself, because this race is basically the leverage in the Senate for whether or not that bill gets passed. Now, John Cornyn should have also put out a statement like this just in terms of being politically expedient. just as an act of self-preservation, he should have said something similar. But he didn't. He still hasn't addressed it. And again, he could be vocally pushing for the SAVE Act right now. Why isn't he? He won't explain it. And when people ask him, he just gets snarky about it because he thinks he's unbeatable. Again, he's going to find out the hard way he's not. The polling shows that no matter which way you slice it, John Cornyn is going to lose. Now, I do want to say, just in fairness, again, the chances that the SAVE Act gets passed are slim to none. I don't like it any more than you do. I want the SAVE Act passed. I think we need it passed, but I'm also a realist. If I don't see a path forward, I'm going to tell you. And right now, I don't see a path forward. Jesse Kelly tweeted this out the other day, and I think it's a good point. He just says, John Thune, to be fair to John Thune, doesn't have the votes, which is true. That is true. Should John Thune have the votes? Absolutely. Absolutely. He's got a Republican majority. He should have the votes to at least pause the filibuster or sidestep the filibuster and pass the SAVE Act. But he doesn't. Why? Because we have a bunch of Republicans right now, like John Cornyn, who are weak, who are cowardly, who are not going to put their own neck on the line to pass Republican priorities. What John Thune should be doing is putting this to the floor, forcing everybody to vote on it, and some Republicans are going to vote no, it's not going to pass, but we'll have everybody on record, the Democrats and the Republicans. And then the next election cycle, you will have enough votes because people will lose their seat on this. They will. John Cornyn is about to. This is going to go down as one of the reasons John Cornyn lost his seat, because he wouldn't come out and strongly support the SAVE Act. But again, you put everybody on record. This is something like an 80-20 issue across the entire United States of America. People who vote against this will be on record voting against this. They will lose their seats, and next time around, you'll have enough votes to get it through. That's what John Thune should be doing. Bite the bullet for one cycle, and you'll have the votes. I remind you, even Democrats support this. Most of them. Some don't. The radical activist types, the loudest that you see, the ones you see on the internet, the ones you see on protests, aren't going to support it. But by and large, most people across the country, including Democrat voters, support the SAVE Act. So force a vote on it, get these people on the record, campaign on it, and then in a cycle or two, we'll get it done. Because that is how the process works. It moves slow. I know we don't want it to. It's a harsh reality. This is the world we live in. All right, we've got a lot more coming up. We'll be right back. Alrighty, welcome back. @_Ethan Buchanan, BUCHANAN. That is the X page. That is where you stay connected. I'm going to talk about something that needs to be talked about, but still makes a lot of people who are fairly conservative uncomfortable. The United States is not meant to be a secular, multi-religious, vague democracy. That's the popular belief today. I don't know where that came from, but it wasn't the founding documents, and it sure as hell wasn't the founding fathers. That's not what they wrote. They wrote, oh yes, freedom of religion. It's pretty obvious when you put that in the historical and societal contexts. They're saying you can practice any denomination of Christianity. That's pretty clearly what they were saying. And as a result of them building a society off of primarily Western Christianity, other ideologies, particularly Islam and radical Islam, are not compatible. They just aren't. You can try to make them compatible all you want. And I'm sure at a very small level, they're compatible enough, I guess. I am sure that if you put one Muslim in every neighborhood, things will go just fine. But as you start to expand that, as you get to a point where we have huge portions of a Christian Western nation, which is what America was built to be and was for a very long time, the moment that you replace a substantial portion of that with Islam, you start to run into more and more what we saw in New York over the weekend. And that was yet another terror attack. Now, thank God this one is really only an attempted terror attack. Praise the Lord that he intervened and the bombs that were thrown in New York City did not go off. But the bombs that were thrown in New York City over this weekend, and they were bombs and they were thrown and they were done so with the intention of killing people, killing a lot of people, primarily at least professing Christian people. The reason that happened is because right about in 1965, we passed the Hart-Keller Act, which essentially said importing people into this country that align with our values is not important anymore. We need to just import everybody that wants to come here or everybody that happens to have family here. That is not a viable system. There is no point in humanity ever where that has worked. You cannot have two directly competing philosophies inside of one nation that will inevitably lead to war. This is an immovable object and an unstoppable force. All right? That's what's going on here. And we just opened the door for that in 1965 when we passed the Hart-Keller Act. People are getting called radical and crazy and far-right and extremist for pointing this out now. And it's not. There are people alive today that were alive before the modern immigration system. And we need to bring the old system back. We need to prioritize importing people who are from Western Christian nations, who are Westernized Christians, over importing Muslims. Because when you import Muslims, you get radical Islamic terror 100% of the time. And for better or for worse, this case in New York is the perfect example of this, and I'll show it to you. Here is the incident in New York. I mean, this is, it couldn't possibly be a more perfect example. This is some white leftist saying, oh, everybody should be welcome here in the United States of America, here in New York City. This is a beautiful, diverse, multicultural city. And as he's saying that, I am not kidding, a radical Islamic pagan terrorist uses his back as a springboard to chuck a bomb into a crowd. You couldn't write this better if you tried. Here it is. Here is the moment. Take a listen. If it'll play, which it doesn't seem to want to right now. So anyway, it's the prime example of the fact that multiculturalism doesn't work as well as the left wants you to believe it is. Okay, I think I've got it working now. Take a listen.
And we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
There it is. That's screaming. If you're just listening on the radio right now, go back later this evening and you can actually watch it. I'm playing the video on Twitter. I'll play it again just so you can watch it. As he's saying, we want a nice multi-ethnic society. Everyone can stay here. The terrorist jumps up behind him, literally uses his back as a springboard and tosses a bomb into a crowd. Now, that guy can sit there and say, everyone is welcome in New York as much as he wants. That guy shouldn't be welcome in New York. He shouldn't be welcome in the United States. He threw that bomb. He tried to kill people specifically because of his Muslim beliefs. Those beliefs should not be tolerated in a Western Christian nation. And you can disagree with me all you want, but what America is and has been since its founding is a Western Christian nation. I am unwilling to pretend that it's radical to say that. It's common sense. Christianity is diametrically opposed with every other false religion, especially Islam, And those two things cannot coexist. Christianity, true Christ-first, Christ-centered Christianity, cannot coexist with a religion like Islam. It just can't. Long term, it really can't coexist with any other religion, because one thing that Jesus Christ demands and will eventually receive is the bending of the knee from everyone. It's best to get on board with that sooner rather than later. If you're not a person of faith, consider this your open invitation. Sooner or later, you will bend the knee. You'll do it the easy way or the hard way. The Bible makes that clear. At the end of days, every knee will bow and every tongue confess. Do it now. But here's the thing. Islam demands the same thing. And they are willing to kill people right now in order to get it. Not all of them. Not every Muslim is this way. But enough are clearly this way for us to say, you know what? This religion should not be welcome in the United States of America. You can call me Islamophobic for saying that. I don't think it's Islamophobic. A phobia is an irrational fear. And I think it's very rational to say, I don't want a religion in my country that justifies the throwing of bombs. And again, it's worth pointing out that these people did want to kill people, and they did want to do that because of their religious beliefs. Here is the statement that this guy who threw that bomb, his name is Balat, that's his last name, Emir Balat. Here's what he told the police after they arrested him for trying to kill people. This is via the NYPD. In the NYPD's vehicle en route to the NYPD precinct, Balat, without being questioned by the NYPD officers transporting him, made the following spontaneous utterances, in part and as captured on the transporting NYPD officers' body-worn camera footage. Quote, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action. We take action. And if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And you know what? I believe he's right. I believe he's right. I believe if he hadn't thrown that bomb, somebody else of his religion would have. Because that is what the religion teaches. This is a common belief in Islam. And again, not every Muslim acts this way. Not every Muslim will kill you for defaming Muhammad. But plenty of Muslims will. Too many for me to feel comfortable. That's not Islamophobic. I'm looking at the reality on the ground. We've seen this time and time again in France. I remind you, several years ago, there was a case where a teacher just showed a portrait, a painting of Muhammad in her classroom. And showing pictures of Muhammad, depicting Muhammad, is forbidden in Islam. And many sects of Islam believe that that's a crime punishable by death. So what happened to this French teacher in France who showed this drawing of Muhammad in her class? She was beheaded by one of her students, or maybe it was a he. I don't remember if it was a male teacher or a female teacher, but that teacher was beheaded in a Western country, a Christian country, for the simple crime of showing a painting of Muhammad in class. We should not be tolerating this in Western societies. It should not be considered radical or extremist or far right to say, this is dangerous, this is a dangerous ideology, this is an incompatible ideology with our society, and we don't want it anymore here in this country. And yet if you say that, and I remind you, this was normal to say pre-1965, if you say that today, you're called a racist. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. We're talking about this attempted bombing in New York City. And again, if you want to hear more of this show, if you're catching me for the first time this Wednesday afternoon, you can listen to me every Sunday right here on AM 950 KPRC, 7 p.m. We're also on affiliates all over the state. We've got affiliates in Dallas. We've got affiliates in San Antonio. If you want to know where those stations are, when you can hear the show in those cities, @_Ethan Buchanan, BUCHANAN. All the information is right there. If you want to support my show sponsor, Dave's Fault lapel pins, get a nice looking lapel pin. That's where you can go to do it. You can find me there. You can find my sponsors there. You can find show times, affiliate stations, everything right there on X. We make it nice and easy for you. You can also watch the show. If you're listening right now, we've got a lot of visual elements, videos that we play, stuff that it's fine to listen to. It's even better to watch it. So if you're catching the broadcast right now, probably in 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour, depending on how fast I'm able to work, how fast I'm able to pull everything together, we should have that uploaded on X here pretty soon. So just wanted to throw that out there. Back to business. The attempted bombing, and thank God it was attempted bombing in New York City. Something really, I think, terrifying, frankly, and telling about this guy wanted to kill people. He wanted to kill a lot of people. That's not just an allegation, that's his stated goal, and I'll show it to you again. Reading from the statement that he voluntarily gave to the NYPD that he wrote out after arriving at the precinct, this is from the NYPD, and being advised of and waiving his Miranda rights, Balat, this is one of the guys who threw the 2 bombs, requested a piece of paper, and after being given a paper and a pen, wrote the following: "All praise is due to Allah, Lord of all worlds. I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar. Amir B." And then the NYPD officer who wrote this went on to say, "Based on my training and experience, I know that kuffar is an Arabic term that refers to non-believers or infidels, and that die in your rage is a slogan used by ISIS and based off a verse in the Quran." So clearly this guy was ISIS inspired. Clearly he wanted to kill a lot of people. And we've had that basically confirmed now. We know that these people are ISIS, these 2 bombers. We know that their goal was to kill people, specifically people who were disrespecting, in their view, the religion of Islam. Here is a Fox report that I think also pairs very well with this, that really makes the case. Yes, these people were not just trying to get headlines. They weren't just trying to become celebrities by doing something extravagant. They weren't just trying to make a sort of performative stand for Islam. They did want to kill people. And the nature of the bombs that they threw, the IEDs that they threw, also really makes that case well. Take a listen.
Are expected to have their first appearances in federal court today, but these photos were also shared in the criminal complaint. Investigators say they show the suspects handling the homemade bombs and the components of the explosives. Again, all of this unfolded Saturday afternoon. I also want to read more from the criminal complaint, which paints an eerie picture describing how these men were inspired by ISIS. The complaint reads, quote, "More specifically, Balat wrote on a piece of paper that he pledged allegiance to the Islamic State, and Qayyumi stated in substance and in part that he was affiliated with ISIS, watched ISIS propaganda on his phone, and was partly inspired to carry out his actions that day by ISIS." Are expected.
Now, what's really the best part of that Fox report is it shows you some pictures from the NYPD of these IEDs, and inside these IEDs is shrapnel, various nails and just chunks of metal and different bits that was all meant to explode and go everywhere. If these bombs had gone off, and thank God they didn't, tons of people would have been killed or seriously injured. Tons. Like, I mean, there was a good crowd of people there. They threw it right into the middle of the crowd. I could totally have seen this killing 20 or more people. And again, even people that weren't killed would have been seriously maimed or injured. Now, you may ask yourself, okay, well, how did these radical Muslim terrorists get here? Were they, imported by the Biden administration? And you would be forgiven for thinking that, because I'm sure we imported tons of radical Muslim terrorists under the Biden administration through our wide open border. People who were not vetted, who were terror connected, and are in this country probably planning terror attacks right now. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because it's reality. Don't leave your home without a gun. You might need it. Train with it, be responsible with it, probably get some self-defense insurance or some concealed carry legal insurance, whatever, but don't leave your house without a gun. because there are probably more of these people in this country who were imported and want to kill you and are planning to do exactly that right now. However, these people are homegrown. And this is why I think it bears repeating. Islam is not compatible, because even people born in the United States, not just radicals from Afghanistan that came here after 20 years of war, people that have lived here their entire lives but were raised under this religion, are susceptible to this exact type of radicalism. Take a listen to, again, another report from Fox detailing these people are actually born and raised in Pennsylvania. These aren't people that came in from Afghanistan, or at least if they did, it wasn't recently. I mean, they may have come in with their parents from Afghanistan, but I believe they were born in the United States, raised in the United States, lived in Pennsylvania. Take a listen to this.
Emir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi are now reportedly in federal custody being interviewed by the FBI in connection to the devices. Our Bill Malusian has learned that Balat's parents are naturalized U.S. citizens from Turkey and Qayyumi's parents are naturalized citizens from Afghanistan. One of the suspects was captured saying this as he was taken into custody.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Yes,
So the confirmed IED, the one that we know has been tested and confirmed to be an explosive, well, that was thrown yesterday afternoon outside Gracie Mansion during a clash of protest. The initial protest was called Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City, Stop New York City Public Muslim Prayer, and was ordered.
So this is a guy that, according to the 1965 Hart-Keller Act, is just as American as you or I. His religion, and by the way, that is his religion. He did that terror attack because that terror attack is part of his religion. That violent attack against non-believers is part of his religion. That's why he carried it out. And there are people today that will look you dead in the eye and tell you his religion is just as protected by the First Amendment as mine. I'm a Baptist. I'm a Reformed Baptist. Not only that, there are people that will tell you that the Founding Fathers wanted his religion to be just as protected and just as legitimate in the United States as any denomination of Christianity. Now, common sense and historical literacy will tell you that that's just not the case. But unfortunately, according to the laws as they stand now, because of the 1965 Hart-Keller Act, they're technically right. They're technically right. You can come in from Afghanistan or wherever. I believe the parents in this case were from Afghanistan. And you can know nothing about our culture. You can know nothing about our religion which our laws were based off of, and you can still become a U.S. citizen. And then your children who practice your religion of Islam may one day build their own IEDs and commit their own terror attacks. This is the world that we live in, thanks to the baby boomer generation, thanks to the Gen X generation. I, as a Gen Z, am now going to have to deal with this problem. So thank you guys for that. This has been the Next Gen Report. You can hear me Sunday, 7 p.m. right here on AM 950 KPRC or wherever you get podcasts, as well as on X. The video podcast is there. It's also on YouTube for now. It might be taken down. We'll see. Thank you very much for listening.